episode 53, live as part of our Stadia Super Saturday special, sexy, special edition. What do we even officially call it? The Sounds of Stadia Celebration 2020. You join myself, Chris, one of your hosts, for the full day. Not just this podcast, the full day, alongside my lovely co-host once again. To my left, your right, the techie teacher himself, fully rigged out for a birthday celebration, Mr. Tom, joining us once again. What is up, indeed? And right below him, we have the man of many pixels, or in fact today, the man of many hats. How many can you count in Richie's little window box? Let us know in the comments below. Hello, Richie. Indeed, we are celebrating like no one else knows how, but then a full 12 plus hours of streaming content just for you lovely people out there. So today we bring you a great show. Got a great show with some massive news lined up. If you've not seen it, there's been some big moves, big shakes in the industry this last week. We've got Amazon coming out the gate with their brand new spanking we don't even know what it really is yet. Streaming competition, something like that. We've got Microsoft spending the big bucks, buying out games left, right and centre, developers and publishers and whatnot. And we've got a bunch of other Stadia specific stories because we've got a ton of games drop on us this week. But before we get into all of that, we just wanted to acknowledge all the wonderful people and support that have been there for us for the last year of content that myself, Chris, Tom and Richie have been making. And more importantly, because this is live, all the lovely people in the chat. But like I said, we've got a great show lined up for you. Gentlemen, we'll go with you first, Tom. Are you excited for today?
Absolutely. Am I feeling like I've got enough energy to get through the day is a completely different question. I'm still nursing my illness at the moment, so I'm going to try and do as much as I can to get through it. We are sponsored. No, we're not sponsored by by Monster. Nearly said Red Bull there, actually. So that'd be interesting. But no, we're here to celebrate. Obviously, we want to give a massive shout out to everybody who's supported us over this past year. Thank you. We wouldn't be here. Well, actually, we may be, but we appreciate you guys stopping along because you give us the motivation to continue doing it, but just give us like that little bit extra energy just to come at you with the best thing we can do every single week. So again, from me, thank you very much. Let's absolutely blast today.
Definitely. And if all else fails, Tom, we'll just medicate you up on sugar. That always tends to give
That'll do.
That extra kick. Richie, how are you feeling today? You ready to go?
I'm ready to go, yeah. I don't know what to say now. Tom's pretty much stole everything I wanted to say. I wanted to make the big Monster Energy sponsorship announcement, the fact that we're not sponsored by them yet.
Not yet. One day.
If you're listening, someone from Monster, we are open to us.
Of course, we've got a few things just to mop up with last week as well. So as I mentioned, we've got Monster Boy that is currently live, where me and Tom went through and we played some exciting fun on there. Go check that out after the stream. We'd rather you probably didn't leave now to go and watch it, so thank you. And to those of you who are listening after the fact as well, thank you for stopping by. We know everyone can't be free on a Saturday. Some people do work, full jobs, very important jobs, and have other responsibilities. So thank you for stopping by right now. But more importantly, if you are watching this after the fact, thank you to you also once again.
We were also guesting yesterday on the Stadia Initiative as well, so if you haven't gone and checked that out yet, go over and show some support to those guys too. We had a great solid 2 hours, I think we went on that in the end as well, which was jam-packed full of news as well.
Oh yes, it went for a long time.
I'm gutted I missed that one. I managed to catch like the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, you missed the epic anime crossover episode.
Yeah, I was busy working on some stuff for today, so I had a good reason.
Exactly. Yeah, it's been a long one. And we also bring you a post show as well with our questions. Post show question last week was, does streaming games impact the industry as a whole? Do you buy more or less games just based on watching them, if that's your preference instead? That was wrote in from one of our lovely patrons, Ashley, as well. So thank you for that question. And again, you can send in your question to the show as well, just at patreon.com/Sounds of Stadia for any questions, comments, or just general chit chat with us as well. We do appreciate it, and the topics do help us create a more centric, focused show that is based on what you want to see. So thank you. So, gentlemen, let's get into it. Let's start. It's basically he's getting in the way.
I want to pull up from Louise R. No entertaining us for 1+ hours weekly for a year is the most expensive giveaway you could give us. Thank you very much for that.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you very much. And it's been, like I said, it's been a year. But and every year, every one of those hour-long special episodes we gave you, what do we always do, Tom? What do we always start with?
The super.
Oh, you would do it.
Right, okay.
52 episode thing.
Rewind. The super sexy special Stadia story segment, aka
the news. Indeed. You didn't think we would have a graphic for that, but there it is. The news. I can just call it in whenever I want to. If you're watching on video right now, I can send it away and I can bring it back every time we say the news.
The news.
The news. It's magic. It just comes and goes. Yeah, the powers of computer. But, as I mentioned at the top of the show, we are starting things off with episode 53 of the Sounds of Stadia podcast, coming to you live. No studio audience, there's going to be no canned laughter. I didn't factor in that aspect of it. Make it a bit like a sitcom. But no, we have to start with probably the biggest Stadia news, not just by proxy, in fact, that Amazon came out of the gate, as I mentioned, with their long-rumoured gaming platform, their cloud gaming platform, no less, using the power of their AWS servers and their massive financial empire that's pretty much global at this point. They came out with Amazon Luna, gentlemen. So Amazon Luna has been announced, and to give our lovely audience who maybe is not clued into the news a kind of just overview of what Luna is, essentially it's going to be a subscription model starting at $5.99 in the United States. Very, very small beta. We will say that straight off the bat. It is in beta, beta, whatever. What do Americans call it? Is
beta or early access? A beta.
Yeah, just that specific word, not the description of it all. So it's going into beta. It's going to be limited to certain states. I know some of our friends over on the other side of the pond don't even have access because they live in different states. I think Hawaii's not included, Alaska, and Canada misses out. Not that it's part of the states, but it's over that neck of the woods, as you say. So small beta. They're rolling it out. They're bringing it out with a subscription model, which comes with a base pack of games. We'll get into the games library because that's definitely a discussional point, how it compares with Stadia. They've brought out their own controller as well. So they've got a Luna controller, which is similar to the Stadia one. It links directly up to the cloud. So you've got that direct link for the minimal latency, that small ping that you need for end-to-end gameplay. And on top of that, in terms of the subscription model, they've gone down the kind of cable TV route with channel packages. So they've partnered with Ubisoft. And we thought Ubisoft was Stadia's friends, and just like that, they sell out and go somewhere else.
Throw us under the bus.
We know Ubisoft just want to have their games everywhere people are playing.
Everywhere.
Which
On the moon.
I appreciate. I respect Ubisoft for that.
Exactly. On the moon if they could. And that's why they've put it on Luna as well. So you can subscribe additionally to a Ubisoft Plus channel on top of your Luna subscription, which gets you Ubisoft titles. And I think so far they seem to have leaned into you get them day and date. So Assassin's Creed Valhalla is apparently included with that channel, which then leads it back to us talking about business models and how that stacks up and compares with the other subscription options on the market. So, any other caveats to that I'm missing, gentlemen? We've got the beta, we've got the controller, and we've got the library of games in the rollout.
I think it's worth saying at the moment that we should, before we get into the technical details of everything, we should just also note that there are obviously going to be differences between Stadia and Luna as well, and that you should reserve judgment on it until people have actually been able to form opinions and test it out themselves.
Where I think Luna is right now is basically where, before Google announced Stadia, they ran Project Stream. That was kind of the testing of the waters. This is kind of where I think Luna is, but they've already announced the branding and the kind of bigger concept.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, right off the bat then, gentlemen, we'll delve into the library, I think, because at the end of the day, as gamers, we're here for the games. And again, Richie, your ever being made more famous quote, day by day, week by week, is, what is it, play wherever makes you the most happy?
The best place to play games is where you're having the most fun.
There we go.
There's variations of it.
Yeah.
You get the point.
We get the point.
Absolutely.
So let's delve into the games library. So, Tom, we discussed this yesterday on TSI. Your thoughts on the games library and how it compares with the other subscription models on the market, but more importantly, Stadia, of course.
Okay, I think straight out the gate, it's worth saying that Luna is launching with a much better library to begin with, a much more well-rounded library, I should say, as well, compared to Stadia. I think when Stadia started, we had an initial list of games that were going to be coming. That list got shorter and shorter as we approached the release date for it. However, with Amazon Luna, they've got a solid, roughly about 100 games, I think, on that list there, and it's quite a wide variety of it. Some classics in there. We've got the Castlevania collection is one thing that I was very distraught to see is actually coming to Luna. Yeah, the Contra collection. We've got Control, Game of the Year contender. We've got Sonic Mania, Rime, Resident Evil. There's a lot of different games in there that sort of like appeal to everyone. So I think Amazon have done a really good job of sort of like researching what do people want. But it is also worth noting that it doesn't come with those big hard-hitting titles that Stadia also doesn't have at the moment. We don't have any Battle Royale games on there. We don't have any Call of Duties. We don't have any sort of like big sports brands by EA like FIFA and so on. But the caveat with that comes from what you said before, Chris, about the channels. We could probably expect to see things like that, perhaps, down the line. But the launch games list is really good.
The launch game list looks like what I'd expect to be in the... Is it Luna Plus they're calling their own channel?
That's the basically entry. So with the beta and the fee, you get that included by default. So that big list of games is yours to go off the bat.
Yeah, and they've basically that. So I'm guessing all the games that they've already announced are going to be on there, barring the Ubisoft ones, which are going to be in the Ubisoft channel, which is also something that's been announced. Yeah.
And just a quick caveat there, they are all confirmed. Those games are confirmed. They're not rumoured, they are all confirmed to be launching with the service. Yeah.
So, a lot of games. Any particular titles that stand out for you, Richie, aside from Castlevania?
Well, the biggest one that stands out, well, Castlevania clearly didn't stand out because I missed it. The two biggest ones is Sonic Mania, because we've been trying to get that on Stadia, because I think Stadia would be the perfect home for it. But Control, that seems to be one that's gone front and centre, and it is a game I have missed.
Yeah, and like Tom said, it did win. I think it got IGN's Game of the Year last year, so it was up there. It was one of my favourite games. I think, in my opinion, it just got pipped by Jedi Fallen Order. But in terms of the library, I think they've done really, really well to pull together a comprehensive list of titles from all different genres. So they have the mascots in there. They've got Sonic the Hedgehog front and centre, and he is in the advert quite repeatedly. Yes, it's an old game, but it's a brand and it's a character. Back to our post show we talked about, is a mascot important? It may not even be yours, but sticking characters like Crash Bandicoot, Sonic the Hedgehog, Mario on the front and centre of your advert, it pulls out. Yeah, Ukulele is one that people are familiar with as well. But you're right, Richie, Control is a big one because it's been in people's mind share, it's been in the news, won Game of the Years, and you should be getting the best version of that game available. I
suspect that I will prefer Control to Jedi Fallen Order, because there was some elements of Jedi Fallen Order I felt were a bit shoddy, to be honest. I really enjoyed the game eventually, but it took me a little while to get to it. It was the way Control, I just felt at times it just didn't respond well enough, and I had some issues with the camera, where I heard nothing but good things about Control. So when I test out Luna, I think it's going to be Control that I test out with.
I will just add that after finishing Control is choppy as shit as well on current gen hardware. Yeah, like to a point where Control's frame rate drop when I played it on PS4 Pro is actually far worse than Jedi Fallen Order. But the version you should be playing now is a year detached, so it should be the best version available. And again, all it kind of rests on, like Tom alluded to, how good this thing runs. Everyone can praise the game library, but we really need to see how it works out there in the wild. And it is in a beta, but will it work as well? Amazon, we know, have those amazing servers, but how they put that into practice, is it going to be as good as Stadia? Because I think I've seen it recently on Twitter especially, that Stadia is starting to get the praise, where people who are now testing out xCloud in the wild, they're soon to be testing out Luna and other servers, they've said Stadia performs better, especially for things like shooters like Doom and Destiny and such. So
I'll go into the technicality of that in just a moment.
Wonderful.
But yeah, the one thing we should say is at the moment, Luna have announced that it will go to 4K, but at the moment it is locked at 1080p.
But they are saying 1080p at the moment, whereas Stadia at launch said 4K 60, and we know that didn't happen out the gate. So I think we could make an argument
unfair,
to say,
I think, on Stadia, because I think that came down to the individual game developers. Like,
it does.
Open for you. It's up to you to make software that can handle it.
But you should maybe still market it that way then.
Yeah.
Put it front and centre on your stage saying 64K. On all of your adverts and stuff, by the way, as well. If it's not your minimum entry level, maybe not push it as like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
But
so what I was going to say about that then is, so if we actually look at the hardware in particular, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty details about things like processing power and graphics and all of that stuff. I'm just going to give it to you in layman's terms. So essentially Amazon runs on a Linux-based system, whereas the Stadia's system runs on a Linux version, whereas Amazon's Luna is going to be running on the AWS Windows servers. Essentially what that means is it's running on a Windows PC. That's basically it. So any games that are available on a Windows PC can run on the Amazon Luna service. They essentially just chop and change these server blades and just take hardware in, hardware out, and so on. and they just install the games to it. Whereas for Stadia, the games actually have to be they have to be like sort of translated to a different code to be able to actually work on a Linux system. So there is an advantage to using Linux with Stadia, is that it runs quicker. Like the access to the data, the instructions is faster. There's less sort of
you're not bogged down in Windows bloatware.
Yeah, basically, there's no bloatware in the way to actually sort of knock it down, which is where some of the points would come in terms of latency. Obviously, a big thing with cloud gaming is latency. We obviously need to make sure it's very responsive for us. And Stadia is winning out in that sort of department at the moment, because we're actually able to sort of ensure that there is none of those issues sort of slowing it down in the way. So that's when you look at comparisons with xCloud and GeForce Now, Stadia is performing better. So hopefully it should also see the same thing with Amazon Luna too.
The interesting thing, difference between Amazon and Google though, is Google are predominantly a tech company. Amazon are predominantly a logistics company. So it's going to be interesting how they handle the tech. I mean, they've got all the money in the world to throw at it, so I'm guessing that's probably not a problem. But I don't know. I think Google have come up with some very interesting creative solutions to problems, and based on their own experience, which might be actually why they're initially rolling it out at 1080p, just because that's what they can handle right now. Where I know Google said up to 4K, but that's probably what they've tested the system to work at. A lot of that could be down to what you're saying, like running on Linux rather than Windows. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to get hands-on. But...
Yes, well, we won't be getting hands-on for some time by the looks of it, but I think the thing to remember is that they've came out saying it's in beta, which we've said many times as founders, as early adopters of Stadia. We are essentially the beta testers. I know they had Project Stream, but realistically, this first year has been finding their feet with everything from marketing to games to strategy and everything that's been going on behind the scenes. And you're right, Richie. I think two very different companies, but they have their wealth, and they have essentially two of the biggest infrastructures aside from Microsoft on the globe. So it's really keen to see how it does work and how they do utilize their own setups behind the scenes and their own technologies that they bring to the table. So it
just sort of harkens back to Phil Spencer saying before, and I don't know if you guys have already raised this, sorry, while I was reading chat, but the whole thing about how Microsoft now sees Google and Amazon as the direct competitors in the gaming industry compared to Sony and Nintendo. That, quite frankly, we know cloud gaming is here now. It's in its infancy. It's going to grow. Stadia's essentially paved the way for it at this point, and what we're going to see now is we're going to see some real competition. I'm hoping that when we come to November 19th, when we get to Stadia's 1-year anniversary, that we actually start to see some real hard-hitting information, some new releases, updates to the systems and so on by Stadia, because I'm starting to feel at this point, and I don't know what you two gents feel about this, but I'm starting to feel like Stadia does now need to put its foot on the gas a little bit more.
Yeah. I completely agree.
I said at the start of this podcast, like this last year that we're currently in, getting towards the end of, should have been absolutely critical to Google, because PlayStation 4 and Xbox One are winding down. This was the time to steal the mindshare, and I just think they've actually failed in that to a certain degree. It's still alive, Stadia's not dead, still love Stadia, but I feel like they could have done more over the last year to take the spotlight for themselves. Yeah. I just don't think they've done that.
When you say winding down, do you mean winding up?
No, the current generation's winding down.
Oh, right. I thought you meant Xbox. I thought you meant them. I was like, they're getting ready for one hell of a holiday season.
Yeah. It's been, there's been a couple big drops from Sony with like Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima this year. But generally, I think it's been a fairly quiet year compared to the previous few years.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this was an opportunity.
Yeah, we all know it was going to be stacked at the back end of the year, and we're about to be hit with, it feels like an absolute tsunami of games as soon as kind of next month kicks off. Even actually just next week, I think we've got Star Wars Squadrons and Crash Bandicoot as big titles dropping. Neither come to Stadia, by the way. EA, that 5th game, we're still waiting on. But in terms of
The Sims,
that early first year, they've had, you're right, Richie, that year to get a footing in, understand. They've got all the data they need now. We know it works. It's fantastic. So now they need to, which I think a lot of the community and probably people in the industry and the outside in need to look towards Google. Where are they spending their money on their marketing? Because now Amazon are in the field and xCloud's now live. Let's not forget that. So the competition is there. It exists.
what I think would
interesting.
be... Sorry, Richie, you go.
I was just about to say, it's interesting you mention marketing, because looking at the early marketing for Luna, it seems like they're addressing every single major criticism that we've had for Google Stadia over the last year.
And what I was going to say about that is it's very, very clear that Amazon have been observing the launch of Stadia. They've been looking at community interaction. They've been looking at the sort of, the way that we've perceived it and we've actually received it once it's come out. And they've sort of adapted to try to counter those points really in their own way and improve on them. But now we're in a position where Stadia can also learn from what Amazon do as well. So once Luna launches into early access and we can start getting that general sort of opinion out there amongst game reviewers, the media and so on, we'll start to, I think we could potentially start to see Google responding to that by saying, like, what are they doing well or what are they not doing well, and how do we improve on that? How can we directly look at our competitor and start to grow our model?
Yeah, and I think
the interesting thing as well is I posted this on Twitter when I was talking to Duncan on Twitter, and I think that early access or beta tag gives you a lot of headroom in terms of when you launch your product, because if you launch something on beta, someone who's buying it is buying it under the understanding that this isn't a finished product. Yeah. Google, that's one of the major things I think hammered Google in the early days, like the first few months, was they basically launched the console as this is the console, and then there was lots of features missing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of these things that when we hit November 19th, what should be happening on the 19th is saying Google is now, Stadia is now officially out of beta. But because they didn't market it so much as a beta to begin with, I think they've missed that boat a little bit. Yeah. But it should have been. That's what I'm starting to think now in hindsight.
Yeah, that benefit of the doubt.
Dodged the launch.
Yeah, that benefit of the doubt aspect's gone because it didn't come out with that beta caveat. And it very much has been. The library was quite small and it's getting better, and we know the titles are now coming, which again, if we were now coming out of beta, that would have been great. We're coming out of beta. Here's the list of games that you can expect, all these big, massive hitters. And we've sang the praises many, many times on the podcast of actually going into next gen. We have some huge titles. We have Cyberpunk coming. We have FIFA coming. We have Madden, NBA. All the sports games are now coming. We are getting some bigger back catalogue games like Jedi Fallen Order. It's en route. And it's great, but again, if it's not beta...
I'm actually very optimistic about Stadia at the moment.
Yeah.
It seems like I'm coming across quite pessimistic because we're talking about the launch of Luna. So I'm trying to compare that to the launch of Stadia.
Yes.
And the launch of Stadia, hands up, was not good.
Yeah, so
October is going to be a good month. October's going to be a good month for games.
Halloween. Ooh, where's Dead by Daylight? Where's Dead by... It's the 26th of September.
October 1st, it's going to be coming as a pro game.
You think?
Yeah.
Even though they said it's coming in September.
Don't care.
They don't care.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tom.
I'm
I'm hoping they've decided to pull it to make it a pro game.
Maybe they let everyone buy it on like the 30th of September and then announce it's a pro game.
Oh no! Don't do a Tomb Raider.
Don't do that. But actually, now we're talking about price. Another point that I'd like to compare with Luna is, Tom, what are your thoughts on this cable-style subscription model? So you've got your base entry, which gets you a ton of games. A lot of games, I will say. Like if I'm getting Sonic Mania and Control. How does that stack up to our current Pro subscription a year down the line? Because I don't know about you personally, I'd rather take Control and Sonic and a bunch of other games like Castlevania and stuff on that list over my Pro library right now. And this is at launch. Yeah. Plus then the Ubisoft channel. I'm looking to buy Valhalla, not Gods and Monsters, Immortals, Phoenix Rising, Watch Dogs Legion, and potentially Riders Republic on Stadia. But why would I want to pay £60 a pop for those games if I can pay £6 subscription on top of my Luna base and just get them for free? Well, not free, but
Luna base.
So this is the
Luna base.
It
depends it depends what the channel fee is going to be. I think that's what it's going to boil down to. Something like Ubisoft, where they release regular AAA games. I think it's going to have a heftier price point than $5.99 a month, which is the price for Luna Plus at the moment.
Yeah.
Probably around the $7.99, maybe $8.99 a month sort of marker.
Yeah. $8.99 for Ubisoft. £50 a month for a year.
Do we suspect
that sounds pretty
plus right. Then extra add-ons and things you pay more? But in terms of the price, do we not think this Ubisoft channel might just come out at the same price as Uplay Plus? So it's literally
that's exactly what I think it is. Yeah. I think it's just Uplay Plus is going to be rolled out like
as a channel.
One thing we talked about on the Stadia initiative yesterday is Project Atlas, which was going to be EA's streaming service. We haven't heard anything about that. Yet they may have now just sort of like put it on the back burner, and they're now going to convert it into a channel for Luna. What do I think of the channel model? I think it's typical of Amazon's business practice in that they're going to scalp the industry in every way that they possibly can. I hate it from my core, but it's extremely convenient because my understanding is, Richie, is that not only will there be channels based on developers and publishers, there will also be channels specific to genres as well. So you could get an RPG channel, an FPS channel, an online battle royale channel, and so on there. So you really do get to pick and choose your sort of like your package. Imagine like you're buying a Sky package in the UK here, and you want to get Sky Movies or you want to get Sky Sports. You get to pick and choose those different things for an additional fee. That's what they're going for. Now, the reason this worries me a little bit is because we know how many people already use Amazon for shopping online. Now, Chris, you raised an excellent point yesterday, which was, what about if you're on there looking at video games and there's literally a link underneath the buy button to say, like, pay $8.99 a month and you can have all of these titles, including the one you're looking at right now, on Luna right now. That takes the money away from the retailers. It puts all the money into Jeff Bezos's pocket. A giant funnel just sitting there, and all the cash is just going to flow in. That's what I'm worried about, and that's what I think is going to happen.
So,
my initial thoughts were, say, for example, if you're a big Ubisoft fan and you basically every month you buy a new Ubisoft game, $60 if you're playing on Xbox or Stadia, $70 if you're playing on Sony. Then say if it came out at like even $10 a month, that's good value for you. And with it being subscription, if there's not any games, you can just cancel it. That was my initial thoughts. But now you bring in the bigger picture of Amazon basically destroying retail for everyone other than Amazon. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of with you there.
I mean, they've been doing it for years. And another thing that I mentioned on yesterday's TSI podcast with Tom, saying about Amazon, the benefit they have is they have that logistics storefront that everybody's familiar with. I think Eddie pulled it up yesterday, but in the United States alone, Amazon Prime members are something like 70 plus million by the end of this year. That's 70 million people who already shop on a digital storefront, which Google doesn't have, Microsoft doesn't have, Sony doesn't have. Yes, they have their own digital storefront for games, but on Amazon, you're going there for a bit of furniture. You're going there for a random kid, for a toy for your kid. You're going there for your Christmas shopping. You're going there for a book, a DVD. And every time you're on that website, there may be a link saying, rather than buy this, rather than wait for 3-day delivery, just play it now. Just click this link. It's $8.99. We'll add it to your Prime subscription. Give it a go. Boom, you're done.
Already shopping for other things there anyway, as you just said. So Amazon wants the monopoly. That they want it. It's not a question. It's not a question of will it happen. They want it. They are going to fight for it.
Yeah, I think Amazon do want the monopoly. They are going to fight for it. I also think in some ways that's the way people want it. Amazon, regardless of what, offer actually a very useful service, which it's unfortunate that it's taking business away from the high street, but that's happening because people are finding it easy to use Amazon. My main issue with Amazon is they have a lot of question marks over their business practices, things like how they pay their taxes, how they pay their staff. They use a lot of 0-hour contracts in the UK. They use a lot of contract workers, so agency workers, which means they don't have to provide like things like healthcare rights and stuff, holiday payment and stuff. They can just, there's no obligation from the company to their staff effectively. So if they don't like you, they can just go, well, you're an agency worker, don't come back.
Yeah,
they're the biggest issues by far with Amazon.
Yeah, I also do think Google can't exactly shy away from not paying tax or anything like that. So there's a few other practices, but in terms of their footprint on the world, I do think they are better positioned to market this than Google are, because like I said, yes, people, unless Google drops Stadia banners all over the Google search page, because we all go to Google for everything, right? It's literally a word in the dictionary now. However, people go to Amazon to shop. Yeah. And that's the key.
And that's the fundamental difference. Yeah, that is the fundamental difference.
Again, I mentioned it yesterday, and I think Meg touched on it as well, but the physical attribute that Google isn't in retailers yet. There is no presence in our game, the GameStops, the Walmarts. Maybe Best Buy soon in the States or Canada, but it doesn't have that physical presence. Yeah. Amazon ship stuff to. So I brought up yesterday, what if every time you order something from Amazon, you open up your cardboard, you rip it apart, that cardboard could be held together with lunar purple tape. So already you've got subliminal marketing hitting you every delivery you get. Inside, there's a little slip of paper that says, this DVD, this movie, this game you've ordered for PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, whatever it may be, here's a little voucher that gets you 3 months of Amazon Luna for free. And it's it's in your home. It's invaded in your home without you realising it.
And they could just go to every single Amazon Prime member they already have and go, here's a coupon, get your first month free, go.
Yep. It's an interesting game they're playing, but they are the biggest distributor, like the logistics company in the world.
He's a discount on a Fire Stick.
He's a free Fire Stick, trial Luna. Like, they have the money to eat this cost to get themselves out there, and it's again, it could be great. Like, again, if it's, I have Amazon Prime, so I can't exactly sit here and bemoan them. Like, if this comes maybe with a free Prime subscription, you have Amazon Prime, try Luna. The beta went great. We're now out of beta.
I actually don't have Amazon Prime at the moment because I keep cancelling it, and they keep, every time I go to buy something, they offer me Amazon Prime for the week for 99 pence. So I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I buy my thing and then cancel.
The other thing we should touch on before we move on, because I think we could talk about this for a long, long time. The one thing we should touch on as well is Twitch integration. I think Twitch is a bigger platform for video game live streams compared to YouTube gaming. I think it's a far bigger platform. Now, you can imagine, like, having Amazon Luna, the amount of people who will start actually playing things, streaming things on Twitch, or even just going to Twitch channels and being able to click, like, oh, like, you're watching somebody playing a video game, right? Oh, it's available on Amazon Luna. Click here to get it. Buy, you straight in. It's just the whole ecosystem. Amazon have got this sorted, really. Now, some people in chat at the moment are saying, like, Luna's got a content creator shook and so on. I don't necessarily think we're shook. I think competition is good. I think it's a very good thing. What I'm more worried about is not how it's going to impact Stadia, but how it's going to impact the overall gaming industry in general, and particularly gaming retail. I think it's going to be very detrimental for gaming retail overall. I think we're going to find 1, 2, or 3 places at most where you can buy video games, and it'll all be online.
I think the gaming industry is at an interesting place, full stop, even before Luna, because it's kind of been just going on straight, even from PS2 to PS4 generations, just being on a straight track. Microsoft and Sony basically compete directly. Nintendo's off the side, PC gaming's off the side. That's basically summarized the gaming industry for the last 15, 20 years. And now Xbox has gone on one way, Sony's gone off the other way. We've got 2 new players in the industry. It's
where's Sega?
And even the way we're receiving games is differently. Whether you've got physical games, digital downloads, and cloud gaming, is 3 different ways. Sometimes even on the same, if you take Xbox, on the same platform to play the same game. Mm-hmm. And then you've got different models of how to pay for your games, whether it's just buying the game outright, something like Luna, which is based on like an almost cable TV version. Yes. You got Stadia, which is, well, buying the game outright, but it's cloud streaming.
Yeah. And
it's very interesting.
Yeah, and again, it's not like, again, Stadia's been out for a year. We've tried it. Obviously, we are a Stadia-centric podcast, but we're all quite agnostic gamers with it. I have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. There's another subscription. I have PlayStation Plus. I'm a huge PlayStation fan. We play Stadia. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how this works, and depending on what the library looks like and what options it offers me, I think the subscription model is great for getting people to test it out, because you don't have to commit a 200, 300, 400 pound box to a console. But it's great. Competition's great. It's healthy for the industry. Rather than companies going left, right, and centre out of business. Like, I remember when everyone was saying Nintendo were at risk because the Wii U flopped so bad. And thankfully they have a war chest of cash to reinvigorate and attack from a different angle. But the reality is, the more companies, the better in it, because as gamers, it creates competition. There's more studios at work. There's more games being designed. And nowadays, more than ever, there's more ways to play them and have fun with the lowest barrier to entry. And this just brings another low barrier to entry. $5.99 a month in beta. Yeah. Test these games out. If you've got the internet, go. You're good to go.
I think it's going to be the market that decides. I think there's probably too many players in the market at the moment going into the next generation. I might be completely wrong, but I think it's going to be interesting how the market kind of filters this down.
Yeah, well, an interesting point of this with the subscriptions is, how do we think the publishers are going to handle this? Because are they going to get the same relevant money? So Sony have obviously came out and said our first party exclusives are that we don't see the value in giving them away day and date on a subscription model. So they're still holding it to like a £70 price point. Is Ubisoft taking the cut of their Ubisoft channel on Luna or whatever Uplay Plus looks like on Stadia? Is that enough for them to recoup their losses of game development? Because the prices is going up and up, and I'm just curious if cloud gaming doesn't take off, if subscription models doesn't take off, and they start looking at they're balancing the books and going, we're getting subscriptions consistently, but it's not the same as a £90 Assassin's Creed Special Edition, Gold Edition going out. I'm very interested to see how the numbers balance out with their subscription model to actual like out and out purchases.
I don't know actually. I think comparing Sony to Ubisoft is it's not apples to apples really, because the one thing you have to remember with the Sony first party titles is they're also using the profit from that to pay off the development costs of the console. Ubisoft aren't doing that. That might be where the difference is. So it will effectively, while it might cost the same to develop the game, Sony have overheads to cover.
True.
So that might be the difference in why they don't see the benefit.
True.
Where Microsoft don't have anywhere near the same level of install base, but they also have access to everyone on PC. Yeah. So they probably do see the benefit.
There's so many stats behind the scenes.
It's complicated.
Yeah, there's so many things behind the scenes, which I just love to know. Like, I'd love to know the finances between who takes cuts on these games. How much did Remedy get for having Control as the Luna base game? And is it based on, do they get a cut of the subscriptions, or do they just get an outright fee for being on the platform? And then what happens with DLC? What is it include? Like, it's such an interesting switch of the industry, that the direction we're going in. And again, to bring it back to Stadia, with Uplay Plus and the games we're getting, and the Pro subscription, it's so weird to think that we just get games thrown at us, essentially, with a subscription model that we can then cancel and just come back to at any time. Whereas traditionally, we're just used to buying the game, it's ours, and it sits on your shelf for all eternity. But
I do need to say this before I forget. Amazon, if you're listening, you need to call the channel for your own first party studios Luna base. Yeah, you have to do it now. It's just such a good branding.
This is something I brought up yesterday as well. They have game studios specifically working on Amazon titles. We've got the New World and what was the other game?
Crucible.
Which was Crucible the one that came out and then out of access and then went back into...
Crucible was the one that came out, was a little bit too much like Overwatch, Destiny 2. It was a little bit like too much like other games, so then they took it back off the shelf.
You can see the market already. It's like, find all of our first party titles in the Luna base.
Yeah, you're loving this one, Richie. But it's interesting that they didn't mention them. Like, there's no like their own titles. Like, if I know Stadia again can't sing any praises because they've got the studios, but they're a well way off as we stand at the moment. But they've talked about them, and it's very weird to think Amazon would launch this and not say, "Oh, by the way, we will have first party titles coming, like Crucible, like New World."
Yeah.
But again, I suppose it's still in beta, so we'll look at that. Moving the conversation on a little bit, then, what are your thoughts on the controller?
Control.
So, Richie, you go first, because I've got something very important to say about that controller. What do you think of the controller?
Aesthetically, I like the black and purple, but it's hard to say how good a controller is till you get hands on. That's all I can really say about it.
Okay. I likened it yesterday to when you go on Amazon and you search for products and you find the Amazon Basics range. To me, that's what it sort of gives the vibe off. It looks kind of cheap. It looks kind of tacky. It looks kind of like it'll break pretty easily. And do you know what backs that up? It runs on AA batteries.
No.
Which you can also get from Amazon Basics.
That could be an interesting cost-cutting measure, though.
Yeah, that's true.
I think they're charging £50 for the controller.
It's definitely $50, I think.
That's not good, because that means you ain't going to end up with a situation we used to always have, where you end up with loads of batteries in landfills.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think it's very eco-friendly. I mean, some people might argue that about lithium-ion batteries as well, and so on. But at least lithium-ion is rechargeable. You can use them again and again. It is still like touting the whole Wi-Fi capability, ultra low latency. But I think the one thing that they're also sort of steering to as well is they're saying, yes, we've got a controller, but again, all of your current controllers will work with the service too.
Not all of them. They have said it's DualShock 4 Xbox mouse and keyboard. So they've made a point of not saying Stadia and a couple of others.
I'd imagine they'll roll out like DualSense and stuff later once they can.
Pretty much. But my personal opinion of it, looking at it, is yes, color scheme's cool, but I still think it looks a little bit too much like a Mad Catz controller or something like that. It looks a little bit like not your first party controller, but sort of like we've outsourced this to some company in China to make, which probably is made in China. But there you go.
Yeah.
You know what actually jumped out at me in one of the photos? The ABXY button seems a bit like too high up, like almost
raised.
Too raised up.
Yeah, I think Brian had the same thing where he sort of thought the actual physical buttons looked a bit cheap for the letters. We should point out as well, I think Roger's mentioned in the chat that is the early access price, so the $49.99 is just their entry level for beta. It may go up come like actual proper launch, or they may even have an alternative. For me, I personally, I like the purple. I like the colour scheme. It's quite appeasing. I do personally just think it looks like a Switch controller. The first thing I did once I saw the reveal was I went and grabbed the Switch controller, and I actually have the translucent one as well, which almost has that Game Boy purple element to it also. But it's pretty much like, again, the controls are
like
controller,
like, isn't it really?
Almost.
The colour scheme is similar to what I was designing in Xbox Design Labs for myself. Which I haven't pulled the trigger on yet, but
so you're all in on the Luna controller, are you, Richie?
the look of it.
The look of it. So.
But as
Tom,
I said, till you get your hands on, you don't know.
Yeah, very true. Actually, in comparing them, since I've got my Xbox controller as well that I made, feels very cheap. I've never had an Xbox controller before. Yeah, I don't know whether it's because it's the custom-made one and it's not like the default manufactured one, but it just like the plastic on the back, it just doesn't feel as solid as I maybe would have liked. Whereas the Switch and my DualShock 4 ones do feel more complete. But either way, like I said about the controller, it's the same as Stadia. It links directly to the server, so you've got that lack of latency. No surprise there. I'd be probably concerned if they came out with just a Bluetooth controller, and that's how they're going to do this. But other than that, a couple of other caveats they have mentioned. Obviously, we've mentioned the library. We've just got the controller. It is available. It's not going to be available on iOS natively, but they have said you can play it through a Safari browser, and you essentially save the Amazon Luna website to your home screen on your iPhone, iPad, and it just creates an icon on your home screen. You can access it through there. That's how they're going to circumnavigate Apple's App Store rules. But again, interesting one to watch. We've mentioned it on previous episodes, just in regards to what it looks like with Apple and all the stuff they're going through with Epic and taking cuts of the pie as such. Any more thoughts on Amazon Luna then, gents? Will you be trying it out, more importantly?
When it's available in the UK, I think you've got to try out all competition, really. Just give it a shot and decide for yourself. That's the one thing I'd say to anyone today, anybody who is really invested in the Stadia ecosystem and is concerned about Amazon Luna launching. First of all, I wouldn't say don't be concerned. I think Google are in this for the long haul. I think they've got a lot to learn. But try out a service yourself. Just try it out and form your own opinion. As we said before, that quote is, whatever it is in relation to having fun.
What is it, Richie?
The best place to play is the place where you're having the most fun. There we go.
Exactly.
You need that on a plaque, Richie. Just get a backlit screen.
You know what? When you got a t-shirt.
It's quite a long sentence on a t-shirt, though.
That's fine.
It's doable.
Quote. It's doable.
I'll find a way of condensing it.
We'll figure it out. But moving on to the next story of the week. Not that it's been a busy week for news in the gaming industry and cloud and all.
Sure not.
We were then followed up with the craziness that is Microsoft talking about investing money. Came out and spent a whopping $7.5 billion, that's billion with a B, on acquiring Bethesda game studios. That is the Bethesda that is famous for titles like Fallout, Doom, Elder Scrolls Online. Guys, help me out. What else is there?
Wolfenstein, Quake, Dishonored.
Yeah.
They're one of the big pillars. They're like up there with like an EA, like an Activision in the gaming industry. This is not a small deal.
And they are no small company. And just to put that into perspective, Disney paid about $4 million to acquire Star Wars and $4 million to acquire Marvel. That's how much money.
Expensive
it must be.
Entertainment property purchase ever.
It must be. If it's almost the combined cost of acquiring Marvel and Star Wars. Like how is Bethesda worth more than that? I know you're acquiring studios and IP, but Star Wars and Marvel, they make $1 billion a pop just on a movie. So Disney made that money back within 8 films.
They've made in combination. I think the Marvel films have made Disney 18 billion since purchase. So 4 billion down, 18 billion up. So nice, tidy profit.
I think this will be profitable for Microsoft in about 20 years. So it's not.
I've got to say, the first thing I'd say out here is, okay, so Bethesda and ZeniMax, ZeniMax is actually the studio they have bought. ZeniMax actually absorbed all of those studios that created all those different titles, including Bethesda previously. So they have come out to say that all of the existing titles that are out there or are in development are still going to be honored as to where they are going, and they're going to continue services like Elder Scrolls Online on Stadia and so on and so forth. But I expect that all future IP is going to go to Xbox only, and maybe PC. We'll see.
I'm not sure. I think the big titles, your Elder Scrolls, your Wolfensteins, your Fallout might be cross-platform. The other stuff might be Xbox exclusive. Something like a Prey, or Doom's probably going to be something like a Prey or a Quake, Dishonored. The ones that probably don't do as much. They might go, okay, we can put these on Game Pass to increase our first-party library.
I think on a surface level, when you look at the games that they've acquired and the IP that they've got there, it is quite sort of shocking to think, oh wow, these are all now Xbox exclusives essentially. And maybe they won't be. But what we've actually got to sort of take a step back here and think about is a lot of the games that they've released recently weren't actually released to very sort of promising reception. Doom Eternal did not get as much good reception when it came out compared to Doom 2016. If we go back and have a look at Fallout 76, we all know what happened with Fallout 76, right?
Yeah.
Wolfenstein has really sort of like dropped off a little bit.
Youngblood, was it?
Yeah,
Youngblood. I wouldn't reel too much into Youngblood because it's basically a spin-off rather than the main line. But
I just think Bethesda may have. Okay, I mean, great. Elder Scrolls 6 is coming out at some point. When? Who knows?
Be a long
Who
while.
knows?
Yeah, they've still got Starfield. Is it Starfield before that?
Starfield as well. Which that's the one I'm probably most gutted by, to be honest with you, because that's something that I'd really be interested in. But I think Bethesda might be going out there on a whim here and saying that Bethesda may have had their heyday already. They may have already passed their prime.
I don't know. I think they've had a few. They've had a few misses. I think it's only really Fallout 46 which has been a catastrophe. Doom Eternal, I don't think was ever going to do the same level as Doom 2016 because I think the industry the franchise was in a different place. People were crying out for a good Doom game back in 2016, where for Eternal, well, this is a sequel to Doom. It's never going to have the same level of hype behind it. The thing is, Fallout 4 was even a bit lackluster, to be honest. Like compared to like New Vegas or Fallout 3, it didn't have the same sort of critical reception.
Yeah, I suppose.
So they're kind of banking on. Starfield is a brand new IP, so who knows what's going to happen there. So they're kind of at the moment feels like they're banking very strongly on Elder Scrolls 6.
Yeah, well, again, we'll have to see what the long game appears to be. Microsoft have played well with others so far. We know games that they have published, like Ori and the Will of the Wisps and such, is already on Nintendo Switch, just like Cuphead. We know they don't own that studio, but they're happy to play with us. We know Minecraft as well is on everything. Minecraft on PlayStation just got a massive PlayStation VR update. But these are titles that were already pre-existing, so I do think things like Fallout, Elder Scrolls Online, Doom Eternal will be supported, but it all depends on how Microsoft want to play into this game. Where do they want to tighten the screw on Sony and go, actually, you're not playing these games, these brand new titles. You're not going to get Fallout 5. You're not going to get Elder Scrolls 6 because we own the studio. We've got no obligation to help out our competition. Or are they playing the long game, which is the cloud subscription model game, where they want their stuff everywhere? Will we see a day where you have an Xbox Game Pass icon on a PlayStation console, on a Nintendo Switch, because they're investing in Game Pass? We can see they've doubled down on Game Pass by coming out and saying all these Bethesda games, day and date. All of our Xbox first party studios, day and date. They are doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on this Game Pass to make it the most lucrative deal at the lowest entry level point, and I think it's working fantastically, if I'm honest. Like, I have Game Pass Ultimate. I've never owned an Xbox before. but just by the sheer value of titles and the prospect of what they're buying up, it looks great. And when you look at the competition, first party titles like PlayStation are doing their own great thing, but is that the long game? Is that 10 years from now? We'll have to see.
Yeah, I think Xbox over the last generation have made the decision to probably move away from the physical gaming space, which is why they repeatedly said they see Google and Amazon as their chief competitors going into the next generation. So I think they're going to be largely focused on things like Games Pass, xCloud, and the software titles, which is why they've been purchasing absolutely everyone they can get their hands on.
Yeah.
I personally think the Bethesda deal is probably overvalued.
Oh yeah,
that's my personal thing.
I mean, not even slightly. I think it's massively overvalued.
Yeah,
it's a huge studio.
Yeah,
but you compare it to Marvel and Disney, where they're going to bring out every couple of films a year, which do turn over like billions of dollars themselves. I don't think maybe an Elder Scrolls 6 might do that.
No,
I don't think the next
question.
Fallout will.
What I mean, unless they suddenly pull a Skyrim and start releasing Elder Scrolls 6 on every single possible device you can think of, including your fridge and your toaster, then who knows really? But I genuinely don't think that they're capable of generating 7.5 billion back on a single title.
I mean, it's
no.
the
well, not on a single title, but not even on probably not even on 10 years worth of titles.
Yeah.
Bethesda don't release millions of titles. You get one a year at best.
And they're not really heavily monetized either, to their credit. Like there isn't really much room for DLC or cosmetics from what they're not quite EA or Ubisoft levels or Activision levels of that. But the interesting for me, even though I think Roger was saying in the chat, you've got things like that come with it. Sorry, it was Anders, I think, like their engines and such. Is it just me who thinks Bethesda's engine gets shit on all the time for being jankiest thing and looking last gen?
Yeah.
So you're not. Again, I know they've got stuff in the studios and the geniuses that do the work. But just back to what you were saying there, Richie, about the valuation, the price. To put that into perspective, Sony bought Insomniac Games for $229 million. That is the makers of Spider-Man, Ratchet and Clank, Resistance, for $229 million, and you've just dropped $7.5 billion on Bethesda. Yeah. Someone over at Microsoft's got a full checkbook ready to go.
Billy Big Bollocks has rolled up and he's chucking his money around, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't think Microsoft can afford to not release some of the the Bethesda flagships onto other platforms, because they're going to need the game sales to fund this purchase.
And then this is where it falls back on. Is this just to get the subscription model to look as appetizing as possible? So it's long game, it's subscriptions that are getting the money in the door.
Yeah. Going back many years ago, I remember Bethesda, I think it might have been at an E3, literally saying that the reason, not to expect Elder Scrolls 6 anytime soon. This was before the initial, the tease reveal. That's how far back we're going. Because they can't make the game they want on current generation technology. I can't see Elder Scrolls 6 being everywhere. It's going to probably be on PlayStation, Xbox, Stadia, Luna maybe, and PC. I can't... Even the rumoured Switch Pro, I'd be sceptical that I'd be able to run it.
Yeah, I can see as well a few people in the chat mentioned about they have their own separate engines that isn't just like id's engine. Yeah, you're totally right. You're totally right. They do, like, Doom Eternal looks stunning and it plays at super great frame rate. In regards to things like Orion and the servers that Bethesda bring with it, surely Microsoft's already got that infrastructure. Like, I know you're pulling together different technologies, but surely Microsoft's got one of the best in the world.
That changes the value proposition, actually, because they've also purchased the engine, which means Microsoft's first-party titles, take Halo, for example, that looks a bit shoddy, could be switched over to Bethesda's engines.
Could be. It could be.
A bit late in the game.
Imagine a Halo with the sort of frame rate you get from Doom.
True, but it's all stuff that's going to obviously have a massive impact down the pipeline. It's definitely that big dick energy we've spoke about, where it's just, look at this, 7.5 billion, and they dropped it bang on before the pre-orders went up for the Series S and X, and it's a clever, again, when we talk about marketing all the time and the lack thereof from Google, imagine if that was Google who came out and acquired Bethesda. They have the money.
Be a shitstorm.
They have the money. And we have Doom Eternal and Elder Scrolls running on Stadia, so it wouldn't have been crazy. But this is where I think back to our main argument, which is as we go into year 2, Tom, November, 2nd year anniversary, they need to do something, right? They need to make a move to make the Stadia proposition, as valuable as Game Pass, as valuable as Luna. PlayStation Plus came out with their massive game collection of back catalogue titles like God of War and such, which are huge game. Funny, I think Fallout's even in on that back catalogue game. So everyone seems to be making moves, and I think we just want to see that future roadmap, which we've been crying out for a year, for Stadia as well. So
I'm optimistic. I think they might be holding on to things because they know they've got an anniversary coming, and I'm hoping that this is where they go. Right, we've been listening very closely over the last year. Here's what we're doing going forward.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're not wrong there.
Okay.
But I think we'll put a pin in that discussion because those are games that are many, many years away for now. Will they be on Stadia? We'll have to wait and see. But so far, we've got Elder Scrolls to look forward to. Anyway, it's already out now. Moving on then, let's look at some actual Stadia-specific games, because in the midst of 7.5 billion, in fact, acquisitions and Amazon launching the next thing, Google Stadia, in fact, came out with a lovely list of games, more in the indie-scape, which I think is what caught a few people off guard. You get this big Bethesda announcement, and then on the flip side of that, you've got these titles here, but different audiences, different strokes for different folks. Let's break them down, gents. Let's have a look into them. So to start off with, we got Ari and the Secret of the Seasons. Is it Secret of Seasons? Yeah. Secret Seasons.
Secret of Seasons.
Lots of S's in there. Coming straight off the back with 3 announcements, 3 games. This is the first one. Tom, do you want to give us a bit of a rundown of what Ari's up to? Or Ari?
Yeah.
Ari?
So Ari, or Ariel, is her full name, like Ariel. It's an adventure game. It looks pretty good in actually that you can sort of traverse different areas, different landscapes, but also control the weather. That's the mechanic that I quite like about it, is that you can sort of control in sort of like a small biome around you. Just change the weather from the different seasons throughout the year, so spring, summer, autumn, and winter, or fall for those folks in America. You can actually sort of like change the dynamic of different things, like freezing a river or freezing a waterfall, or melting something that might be in the way by changing to the summer and so on. It's quite an interesting concept. I caught the demo for it and the trailers back when it was announced at like some of the indie events earlier on in the year, and I thought, actually, do you know what? This looks like it could be quite fun. It gives me sort of vibes as an indie title. It gives me sort of like Windbound level, Windbound sort of vibes, not in terms of the actual gameplay, but sort of like the length and the quality of the game I would expect from it. It's got a combat system in there as well, so you can utilize the weather and all the different seasons to help you in battle as well. Nice and 3D. Richie, you mentioned before the show started that it reminds you a little bit of.
I don't know if I dare say it because I know people a bit. You mentioned Windbound, and there's quite a few people were annoyed by that. Windbound didn't turn out to be what they expected, despite being a pretty cool game. But Ari and the Secret of Seasons, to me, it looks a little bit like a Zelda clone.
Yeah, I think a lot of things are inspired by Legend of Zelda, to be honest.
But I'm more optimistic with this because of the combat. The way they look like the combat plays out looks like a traditional like 3D Zelda game.
Do you know what it actually gives me a little bit of vibes of as well? Obviously, it's not the same sort of genre of game, but it gives me almost, looking at the trailer again now, sort of like Guilt vibes a little bit as well.
Yeah,
it's sort of like the way
like
it works.
It's like a more like saturated Guilt style art form.
Yeah,
but, yeah, it's the art style, but instead of being quite muted like Guilt is, it's very colourful.
Yeah,
it is very colourful, and it actually does look. The more I look at it, the more I think actually it does look pretty beautiful.
Yeah,
so,
I'm getting quite strong Mario vibes from it. Like looking at with all the Mario 64 special like All Stars going around and Odyssey, like you've got the jump mechanics, like you're throwing things, it's colourful and it's got like that nice, like you said, that art colour palette where it's nice, just nice bright thick colours that really pop. So that's interesting. They said as part of the features, it's got rewarding exploration, captivating storytelling, dynamic environments, fluid combat, and an alluring 3D world. So there's your bullet points in you. But it's definitely one that's on my radar. That's from Modus Games as well, which we know they've worked recently with Stadia on certain games that have dropped on. So nice to see them ticking away as well.
It's a platformer as well, platformer adventurer, so great.
Yeah, but more variations, always better. Let's have a look at what games we've got coming up next then as well. One which we had explicitly denied was coming to Stadia from our friends over at CoatSync. It was true, in fact. Cake Bash is also coming to Stadia. Tom, do you want to give us a rundown of what Cake Bash is?
It's an up to 4-player battle royale essentially of. Do you know what? I'm going to take a step back here. It's akin to a good timeless classic Crash Bash on PlayStation, only with
Cakes.
little fondant fancies, little Battenbergs, little chocolate fudge cakes, and things like that. Do you know? I've sort of thought about this overnight, and actually, it could be a bit of fun just for like a blast with the family, just something to just mess around with. Lots of different little stages where you have to try and be like the survivor who collects the most jelly beans or collect the most sprinkles or something like that, while the cake might be being scooped up and eaten. You know, silly little things like that.
Do you want to challenge your friend while also being a French fancy?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think it looks fun. I think it's definitely got pro game written all over it. But
You're talking about mascots, Chris. There you go.
I mean, yeah, who doesn't want a Battenberg cake as their mascot front and centre? I do like a good Battenberg cake. As long as it's the small ones. If it's the big ones, the ratio of cake to marzipan's all over the place. But when they're the little bite-sized ones, it's right up my street. But I'm getting hungry now. We're getting close to lunchtime. So let's move on to some more games. It seems though this is going live on a Saturday morning. Remember the good old Saturday morning cartoon Cat Dog? For those in the UK, I think it was a US thing as well. So the next game up on the list is it Fogs? And it's essentially cat dog game that looks similar to. It reminds me of like Octodad, where it seems like one player is going to control one dog and the other player is going to control the other side of the dog, and you've got to work your way through a whimsical world of puzzles and adventure while trying to pull opposite directions to figure it out.
It says they're linked by a stretchy belly. You need to bark, bite, and bounce your way through obstacles set in themed worlds of food, sleep, and play. Yeah, this is one I definitely see myself playing with Holly sometimes. I think we could have a bit of fun with this. Again, it's another silly little game. You know, it's obviously not marketed for the hardcore gamer in any way whatsoever.
It's not quite Doom Eternal, is it?
It's not quite Doom Eternal, no. But it's definitely, you know, it gives me that sort of like Overcooked-esque vibes again, in terms of like the art style, in terms of the sort of like aim of what the game is trying to achieve.
It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's just straight up fun. That's what it's trying to achieve. And I'm all about that.
Yeah, and these are the guys who made Get Packed as well, so we know what type of humour to expect from this title as well. Where do you think they got Fogs from?
I mean, no idea.
The Ogs part is pretty obvious.
Yeah, dogs.
Fogs.
I suppose Cat Dog was taken, so they couldn't go with that.
They couldn't call it Dog I either.
Dog.
I wonder if they tried Dog Cat. Like
maybe they should have gone with Double Doggin.
Double Doggin.
Yeah, maybe it's not.
Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. Or maybe step away from it. But either way, we've got three game announcements coming to Stadia as well. We did have a release date on a couple of them. Cake Bash was listed for October 15th, which tells me it may not be a pro game actually in hindsight, but I'm sure we'll jump in and have some party play with you lovely community members out there as well for Story. Are you eating there, Thomas? Middle of the show.
Mate, I am starving.
Is it a fondant fancy?
No, it's salt and vinegar 12.
Salt and vinegar 12. Wow.
Does make us good as a mascot.
No, not quite a good
really.
mascot. But that wasn't it. That wasn't all the game announcements we got. Finally, back in March, Stadia did announce the Stadia Makers program. So we've also been followed up with more games. 7 games, in fact, got announced. Actually, a bit more than 7. 7 new ones and some more coming. So let's break down that list as well, because we're all about the games here at Stadia. Games. And first up, we've got, I want to say Tohu, I think it's called.
Tohu. Yep. Tohu.
Yeah.
Take us through that one. What's Tohu about?
Tohu. I think Tohu might be the only one that I've actually not looked at yet.
So it looks like what was the game? I want to say it was like Machina or Machina or something. It was like a
Machina, yeah.
That one. Yeah, that game.
I couldn't put my finger on it. I went, it looks so much like something I've played, but I can't figure it.
So it's like a hand-drawn art style and like almost like a colouring book, and it's almost like a point-and-click adventure. And in the actual trailer, it's very much point-and-click with a mouse cursor. So I'm very interested to see how Stadia's. Do we just get like a Destiny-esque cursor? In a delightful adventure, but it says, packed with challenging conundrums, encounter eccentric characters, and figure your way out through with the girl and Cubus at any time. So, but it definitely is that game. What was it? How did you say it again? Machina. Just Machina.
Is it Machinarium or something.
Yes,
like that,
that's the one I'm thinking of.
Machinarium.
Yeah, it's very much in that vein where you just basically have to solve the puzzles to get through, and it tells a story through like different pages of it.
Yeah, and again, point and clicks. You don't often see many point and clicks these days.
No, not since LucasArts disappeared back in the day. That was the Renaissance.
Indiana Jones.
Oh yes, so we've got that one coming out. That was one. So bear in mind the Stadia Makers program. That was really small independent developers where essentially they were helped with Stadia to show them how the engine worked, and they basically work in partnership with Stadia to make these titles. So
they're basically second party titles, like.
Yeah,
it's not something that gets branded around a lot, but they are. It's like they're not owned by Google, but they have work exclusively and paid for by Google
to help them get there, which is great. It's like a little Kickstarter fund almost by a bigger company, which is great to see.
So we're getting closer than first party AAAs.
Getting closer. Second one up, we've got Death Carnival, which was also announced. Now, Death Carnival, out of the list that we're going to go through, is probably my favourite. I want to say,
really,
yeah.
Really?
It reminds me of kind of like Dead Nation on PlayStation.
Yes, I can see that.
Or
it's very much a
Hellraisers.
top-down. It's like a top-down twin-stick shooter, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it looks super fun.
Okay.
It just seems like arcade action. Like there's nothing to. It looks like there is some element of a story. There seems to be some kind of first-person action going on, but it's when it gets to the top-down point of view that I just get a really good like co-op Dead Nation vibes, where just enemies left, right, and centre coming at you. You just use a array of weapons to just take them out, and I think it looks really.
Stand still and spin. Just by shooting.
And again, from an indie team, I think going with a top-down perspective, I think lends itself really well to just having that varied environment. But I think it looks stunning as well. I'm really happy with it.
Cool.
What do you think, Richie?
Top twin stick shooters are not usually what I'm drawn to, but if this comes out as a pro game or dead cheap, I'll probably will pick it up to give it a go because it does look like an awesome game.
Death Carnival.
So yeah,
coming in good.
It's got awesome. It's a good name as well.
It is, kind of like it doesn't really tell you what it is, but you kind of know what you're in for just by the title. It's like it's going to be some brutal action, really. Followed up with our next title, which is Unto the End.
This is a title I'm really excited about. I've been following this one for quite a long time, and to see this one announced on Stadia, I was really happy to get this one. So Unto the End is essentially a Norse-themed Viking-esque game where you play on a 2D landscape. The one thing I would say with this is every single decision you make in the game affects the overall gameplay. If you decide to fight something, then chances are, if you attack another an NPC, for example, chances are you will never be able to go to that town again because you'll be determined to attack on sight. Likewise, if you're out there in the wild, sometimes you might need to fight for survival. You take battle damage; that battle damage stays with you throughout the entire game. It looks really good. This game does. It's got a lot of hype behind it, and it's developed by a husband-wife studio. It's literally just the two of them have created this entire game.
Interesting. That's definitely unique from a game development standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't.
Combat is not easy. Imagine it like a little bit like a 2D Dark Souls-esque type game.
This is what I love about indies when they're brave enough to come up with like a unique concept.
Oh yeah, they definitely differentiate a lot more than AAA do, where they've got their formula down. I'm not surprised, Tom, you're interested with the whole Norse mythology element coming from that. I know you're a massive fan of that.
Absolutely.
The combat, visually it reminds me a bit like Nidhogg, just because they're like the two characters side by side fight. Like you can't get past until you defeat this bad guy. But it's a really interesting concept.
A Viking-themed Nidhogg game with a decent story, I'm in for that.
Yeah,
I mean Nidhogg is technically Viking-themed anyway.
Well, yeah, there you go. With the giant
world
serpent even though it looks like a giant sausage. And but reaction combat. They've said read react combat. So one of a kind focused system to learn skill and master, designed from the ground up specifically for 2D fighting. So it might not quite be Nidhogg style of just up and down to disarm with the fencing maneuver. It looks like it may have a bit more to it, but. The fact that you retain like your damage and stuff is great, because I think a lot of games nowadays you get like massive health bars and it's not realistic. So it's interesting, like you said, for that Dark Souls element of like if you lose, you're out for the count maybe. Following on from that serious one, then we got the announcement that we've got Figment, Creed Valley coming. Which I should point out as well, they did mention that Figment, the original game, is also coming to Stadia 2 as pro game. So that's probably going to come a little bit ahead of time for this which is essentially the sequel, which is Figment Creed Valley. And this seems like a asymmetric adventure title on some kind of like Avatar-style floating worlds where you solve puzzles to progress from like island to island. But it's got a very interesting, like almost like a carnival theme. Not Death Carnival, but it's got a carnival theme.
Yeah.
There's parts of it that remind me of Bastion.
Yes, that's a good liken to actually. It's sort of like a cross between Bastion and, if you've ever played it, Fez as well. Even though Fez had that like really cool like 3D 2D mechanic. It's sort of like a merging of those sorts of two. But I like the comparison to Bastion.
Fez was a good game.
Yeah.
Such a cute character, even though he was made up of like 5 pixels. He was such a cute character just because he had the little Fez hat. So again, the games keep coming. Again, it's interesting that the teams who are working on the sequels, essentially, we now get their predecessors coming out as well. So it's just another game to add to the library. And I think if it looks like they're going to do it in the realm of, you get the original one as a pro game, this will be the purchase game, which I think would work best for the indie developers, because then they're getting the money from Google for the pro subscription, and then they get the actual like cash in hand for their sequel. So if it does good on pro, it could do good elsewhere as well.
Unless it's SteamWorld Dig 2.
Unless they do it the wrong way around, yes, certainly. Next up, we've got Nanotale, which is it's Nanotale Typing Chronicles, which is when we talk back to the mouse and cursor thing. You have to type your answers in. That's the vibe I got from this. So is it only played via mouse and keyboard? Is there going to be an option?
So initial vibe of this game is essentially, again, it's an action-adventure title, but whenever you encounter things in the environment, you have to type out the words that are on the screen. So you have a mana bar that you need to replenish by typing. You also then, if you encounter enemies or NPCs, you also have to type certain things to progress the story. Now, the developers of Nanotale have actually come out and said that there will be a controller version of the game as well. So you'll be able to use the controller, but it actually takes out the typing element of the game. I'll be interested to see how that works, considering, the title of the game is Nanotale Typing Chronicles.
Yeah, so it feels like you're losing a big part of the game there, but
but our friend Eddie tweeted to them to confirm that, and they did respond by saying there will be a controller version of it as well.
I wonder if it's similar to Lost Words then, Richie, where the words pop up on the screen, you have to drag them to maybe like over the bad guy to have the word impact your decision of what they're going to do. But I'll be honest, it's a game that I've not. It's a style of game that I've not even considered. It's almost like the old read your own storybooks where you'd like get to chapter 3 and then you could go skip to chapter 17 depending on your decision. It's almost laid out like that.
If it's a bit of a throwback to when we were younger, you used to have them like games that were designed to help you type, but only good.
And actually have a story.
Have you ever seen somebody created? There was a House of the Dead clone called Typing of the Dead.
Like that was awesome.
Where you play
That's
the exact
one of the ones
same
that
game.
actually is good.
Yeah, you have to type to kill the zombies as they're coming towards you.
But it's interesting because the kind of the slowdown of having to type the words does in turn then make it similar to like almost a turn-based RPG where you have that pause in between action to make your informed decision. One of the things that I didn't realise, which came out of it, was they said it supports all keyboard layouts, QWERTY, which is all I knew. I didn't know there was any more. And then you've got AZERTY, QWERTY, Dvorak, Colmac, and Beepo.
Different countries, even within the EU, have different keyboard layouts. I know I've got a couple of German layout keyboards at work.
It's not even different languages. That's actually like down to typing preference and what you're actually using a computer for. Dvorak in particular is a very interesting one.
Wow.
Well, on the German layout keyboard, where we got the quotation marks on the Shift 2? That's actually an at.
Yeah.
That's where your at is.
Yeah, the American keyboard is quite similar like that.
When you're using a German piece of software with an English keyboard, that screws you a bit.
Wow, and I was just impressed by having a $sign on my keyboard.
Yeah.
But either way, so you learn something new every day. A lot of the words just sound like some kind of insult in another language, though, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
You Richie, you dirty.
You absolute
you dirty Colmac.
What did you call me?
son of a beepo. That's what we. But either way, that is Nanotale Typing Chronicles. So check out that as part of the Stadia Makers up as well. And then next up, we get a lovely little pixel adventure coming out. Dark Side Detective 2 is coming to Stadia, and this is the other game that I've mentioned. We will be getting its predecessor, Season 1. coming out as a Stadia Pro game, I believe, ahead of time. This has me interested. I love a little bit of pixel art games. It seems to not take itself too seriously. The comedy is definitely throughout. Did either of you happen to play Dark Side Detective Season 1?
Can't say I have, no. I hadn't even heard of it before the announcement.
I think I've played something similar. I don't know if it was this. I played a bit of it. I think it was a PlayStation Pro game before. It might not have been this, but it's very similar in concept.
Okay.
I'd have to double check.
But again, back to the point and click part, it looks like you have puzzles to solve, you have like word mysteries, and you have to, again, drag and drop using a mouse cursor. So I'm very intrigued to see how this translates to a controller. But it looks like a fun adventure. I love a good pixel art game. Something that just throws me back to playing Sega Mega Drive and NES games, and that art style is just really, really...
It reminds me of like Curse of the Monkey Island, that sort of stuff as well, which they are classics. So yeah, I'm all.
It's your point and click narrative adventures, isn't it?
Yeah.
Point and click, just like that. That's how we do it.
It's interesting to see actually Stadia utilizing the PC peripherals in some of these.
It certainly
that
is.
was one of the things that I was always interested in, because Stadia can straddle the difference between PC and console.
I didn't expect you to use the word straddle today, Richie.
Me either.
Nice.
Hey, see, that's what you are, because you're
That's
because you're a son of a.
When in
big
doubt,
boss.
straddle.
When in doubt,
Don't do that.
straddle.
Don't do that.
That's more of a T-shirt than your other quote. And then final one we got up for the Stadia Makers program, we got Kaze and the Wild Masks, which Tom.
Kaze.
It's Kaze.
It's Kaze.
It looks like
Japanese.
It looks like it says Kaze, but
Kaze.
I'm getting
Kaze.
obviously big Monster Boy vibes from this, which scares me a little bit. But then I'm also getting massive Sonic the Hedgehog vibes, even Mickey Mouse Castle of Illusion vibes with a kind of a modern art style. Tom, I know you're massively hyped for this one. Do you want to give us a bit of a rundown of your take?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a classic 90s retro sort of pixel art, side-scrolling, complete the objectives type game. Collect masks. The masks give you different abilities, different sort of forms, like Monster Boy, where you get to transform into like a shark form. There's a bird form, lots of different things like that. Don't think it's going to be anywhere near as difficult as Monster Boy.
I hope
but
not.
I do think it'll be quite challenging for somebody who may be used to, like speed running through Sonic levels, for example.
It's more action platformer than
Yes.
Metroidvania.
Yes, absolutely. So there's more action platformer, like you say. You don't have to backtrack. It'll just be go through the levels, collect things, defeat bosses, get to the end of the game. Job done.
Job done. Richie,
Job done.
You interested in this one? You seem quite defensive on the name as well, so I'm guessing.
Yeah, I am. I think it looks awesome, and there's been a bit of a theme running throughout this entire podcast where we keep going back to our post show where we talked about the need for a mascot. I think the design of Kaze looks awesome.
It looks
This
like
could be a unique mascot.
Yeah, when she's running around on screen, it almost looks like Lola Bunny from the Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
No disrespect if you're not a fan of Lola Bunny, but the ears seem to play a big part in it. Which other is it? Rayman who has his ears that make him helicopter
He used his
fly around?
hair, didn't he, as a helicopter?
Was it his hair? Was it?
Yeah.
Little hair tuft, yeah.
Little hair tuft to spin around.
Yeah.
Interesting one, but yeah, you're right about mascots. It looks super fun. This is probably the one out of the Stadia Makers that appeals to me the most, with my Sonic the Hedgehog nostalgia coming out, and a lot of the enemies do actually remind me a lot of Monster Boy. So as much as it pains me, it's definitely a clear comparison to be made. But the level design alone, it's something about platformers when they have that really like light yellow brick, reminiscent of Mario or Sonic, and then the little tuft of grass on the top, which is just, you get Emerald Hill Zone or Mario Land vibes immediately come like rushing out of your nostalgic memory.
JP from Stadia Hunters has just clicked onto something awesome. It looks like a new starter Pokemon. I could totally see that being a fighting water type.
Yeah, 100%. But that brings us, gentlemen, to the end of our Stadia Makers game. That is a ton of games. Like, forget Bethesda, forget all those IPs. We've just got dropped, 10 indie exclusives?
10, yeah.
Not exclusives, but 10 indie titles coming. Some of them first to Stadia as well, which is mega exciting stuff to cover off. But yeah, hype for some, not so much for others. As expected with all that catalogue of games, you can't like everything, right? But variety is the spice of life, and we've just got a ton of variety right there. So your top games, if you had to pick one, gents.
Oh.
You got to pick one.
Are we going Stadia Makers or going
all
out
of the
of
things
10?
we spoke about? Even Bethesda. or Luna.
You can't do that because I'm on a big Elder Scrolls Online streak.
Let's just keep out of the Stadia 10. Let's keep out in the Stadia 10.
All right, Stadia 10.
I'm going with Ari.
You going with Ari? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Unto the End, personally, but it's a very close second for Kazi. Very close second.
Yeah.
I'm going Death Carnival.
Okay.
Shortly followed by Cake Bash. I think we're going to have an absolute wild time with that
Cake Bash is...
We'll have an absolute bash
There's
with
definitely
Cake
a
Bash,
stream there.
Yeah, 100%. Moving on then to some of the stories of the week that aren't necessarily focused on just games, although it's rewarding games. We want to talk about the Game Awards 2020 because Jeff Keighley has came out and told us that it will be going ahead this year, albeit in a digital platform manner. He's came out and said that it's going to be taking place across Los Angeles, LA, the City of Angels, London, the city capital of London, of England, and Tokyo in Japan as well. So we've got 3 things. I'm interested to see how that looks differently, but more importantly, it's good to see we get the Game Awards. I think it's right as an industry we do get together and celebrate, and Jeff's great at hosting it. And I, for one, love seeing the Muppets at the Game Awards. I think they're hilarious. I think having Beaker last year for the untitled Muppet game was a stroke of genius.
I enjoy the Game Awards.
The year before, they had Pepe show up alongside Ninja and introduce a game title, and he kept making loads of shellfish jokes. And I've just got there's a warm place in my heart for the Muppets and the Game Awards.
Fantastic.
I think this might be just the way they do the Game Awards going now. Rather than trying to get everyone having to fly over to LA to cram into one room, they could literally just go, if this works, I'm assuming that they'll have some people coming on stage in different cities, and to the audience, the rest will be kind of streamed through. But if that works, there could be an awesome way of doing it. So you can all have a literal global event.
A literal global event. Yeah. Certainly. I think I'm excited for it. I do have a really good post-show question, actually, that does follow on from the back of the Game Awards, which we will get to briefly, because we're coming up on the end of our Sounds of Stadia podcast, episode 53 live stream. There are a few other little bits and pieces I think we might as well briefly touch on. PUBG is removing the keyboard and mouse matchmakers option.
Yeah. That's slightly I won't say worrying news, but it's clear that most people playing Stadia are using controllers anyway. Like, a lot of people play video games doing that. I don't think Stadia necessarily is a platform that people instinctively go to mouse and keyboard for, unless it's certain types of shooters. But PUBG, it's clear that by removing keyboard and mouse matchmaking from Stadia, it means they're not getting enough interest. That's the way I see it.
Interesting. It could always
got
come
to the
back
point where
as well.
It's got to the point at the moment where it's costing them more to support it than it's worth.
Yeah, and again, it could always come back. They just have to flip the switch and it comes back on once the audience is there. Fantastic. So then, final point, gentlemen, from the news. We got some game releases. We got Serious Sam 4 launched this past week. We have our first look up on the channel as well. I delved in and played with Sam Stone and Kenny, his new sidekick apparently for the game. It looks like Kenny's got to die at some point, I'm guessing, but we'll find out. That's over live on our YouTube channel, so go check that out if you've got a bit of time. Coming in at a decent price, I think $39.99, 35 English pounds. Not too much of an ask, I think, for a game that I would personally categorise as AA standard. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it yet, but graphics wise, it's maybe not as good as I was expecting. It
actually looks PS3 gen for me. If I'm being honest
texture
with you.
packs and character models, not so great.
But Crow Team have never been about that.
Yeah,
really, that's not really been their gist. It's been more about as much chaos on screen as possible.
And they do that at the beginning, like the first level. Like, you only get a tease of it, but it's definitely going to be the apocalypse kind of big finale. My guess of the game is where they drop you in, and I kid you not, they must be like 1,000 enemies, and you have a Gatling gun, and all shit's popping off left, right, and centre. So I had a lot of fun with it. Don't get me wrong; it was super fun.
If it's a fun game that plays well, that maybe looks graphically a bit dated, then I think a AA title and a $40 price tag is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually believe they even came out and said that first level, Chris, that first introduction, there are hundreds of thousands actually live on the screen.
Well, actually, from like cakes and stuff.
Sprinkles.
Yeah, hundreds and thousands. Sprinkled all over.
Get Cake Bash off your mind, Richie.
I just want some cake.
Just want some cake. We can get some cake at some point during
I've got the hat, I've got the blower.
You can pick a cake
I need
up
some cake.
on the way around to mine later on. So thank you to everyone who stayed by. I was gonna. Do I sign off on a live show because I'm not going anywhere?
Yeah, you sign it off. I see you would usually.
Everyone watching live, we're not going anywhere. Everyone who's listening to this post show later in the week, have a great week. My name's been Chris.
I've been Tom.
I've been Richie.
We've been Sounds of Stadia live in front of a live studio audience. Take care.